Get your faces on.
Okay.
What's going on?
Are we in? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we're in.
Oh, hey.
We're in.
Yep.
We got, looks like 28 people. Welcome. Good evening.
If everybody should be able to hear us, we are going to wait for about another 3 to 4 minutes for everybody to get on, and then we will start the webinar. So if you'll bear with us just a couple minutes, we'll get started here.
So how are you three doing?
Awesome.
Great.
I'm doing super good. Nice background there, Mr. Sudman. I like it. It looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have to do a whole webinar on other markets for us to learn about.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be definitely doing those. Sure. Okay, we'll be starting in 1 more minute. We'll get started here.
Yeah, it looks like we have some more people joining, so we'll give them a couple more minutes. Nice. We have somebody from Texas joining us. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening.
Yeah, I think we have pretty much people from all around the country on.
Yeah.
So
Canada.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Canada as well.
I give it 1 more minute.
Yes, we're 6:07 Pacific Standard Time, so we'll start at 6:08. We want to end on time as well, so we will get started in just a few seconds here. Okay, everyone. Hello, I am Ron Sudman with Management One. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're totally excited to have you guys all here. Those of you who are not familiar with Management One, we've been in business for over 36 years, and we have really leased and rehabbed, believe it or not, over 10,000 properties. Some of my fabulous clients have been with me over 34 years, and some of our loyal residents 25 to 30 years. So we think we have something and some serious knowledge that you're going to be able to benefit from. We're also going to be sharing with you the painful truth about what's happening with COVID-19. We'll also talk about the rental market, the real estate market, and of course, much, much more. And tonight, as you can see on the screen, I have 3 of my associates joining me tonight. Kristan Pennington, our marketing director. Krissia Pena, a real estate agent who runs First Choice Investments, which is a subsidiary of Management One. And Tyler Sudman, a real estate agent who runs Sudman Agency Investments. also a subsidiary of Management One, and also does business development at Management One itself. So before we get started, and as others are coming on, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. We encourage questions. So there is a chat button that you can write in questions and send to us while we are speaking. When you see a question mark that come up on the screen, Kristan, our moderator, will field the questions so we can answer a couple of them. If we don't get to all your questions, we will respond to all of them and send it out after the webinar the next day. So everyone can basically relax in an open forum, and we respect your time, so we want to end on time as well. We'll also be sending you a recording of the webinar, so you don't have to take all those notes. This way you can engage with us and totally engulf yourself in the conversation here with us tonight. Kristan has been with Management One for an amazing 5 years. And how you doing tonight, Kristan?
I'm doing great, thank you. But I think I've been with Management One for 15 years.
15 years, that's awesome. Krissia has been with First Choice Investments with Management One here, and for an incredible 5 years, and she handles all the sales in the Inland Empire and listings. How you doing tonight, Krissia?
I'm good, but it's been almost 9 years, Ron.
I think you just put 5 across the board.
Yeah.
And we also have Tyler Sudman. Yes, he's my son. And it's awesome now that he's joined the Management One firm for over a year now. And that's after being with Sudman Agency Investments for over 5 years. And he handles all the sales and listings in the OC Orange County area. And how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm excellent. I'm excited.
Great. So let me turn it over to Kristan at this point. I'll be back a little bit later on to speak with you, but I will be available throughout the entire webinar tonight to answer any of your questions. So Kristan, take it away.
Great, thanks, Ron. So first, I just want to let you guys know what our agenda is going to be tonight. First, we're going to hear from Krissia on from the real estate market update for the Inland Empire, followed by Tyler on the Orange County real estate. Then I'll talk about the eviction moratorium. Ron's going to share with us some information regarding rental property, and then Tyler will wrap us up with an update on our rental market. So having said that, Krissia, why don't you give us some information on the real estate?
Okay, so hi, thank you for having me. Yes, like Ron said, my name is Krissia Pena, and I am a full-time real estate agent, and I service the Inland Empire. I am also an affiliate of Management One at First Choice Investments. So this is a unique opportunity because it allows us to help our clients with the sale, purchase, and exchange of their investment property. This evening, I will be covering just some trends and highlights in the market found for the Riverside and San Bernardino County. So let's talk about just what's happening with this crazy market. And it's not just us here in Southern California, but we know that everybody's experiencing some sort of mayhem. I think most areas, and I think if you're a homeowner, you have experienced record-breaking appreciation, which, again, it's a great thing if you have a home. Almost every one of our listings has experienced multiple offers and bidding wars. So that is also something to be said about what is happening here. If you're on the buyer side, however, it is a little bit of a challenge. And if you are an investor that's trying to buy investment property or trying to find an exchange, this is also possibly causing some pressure with the exchange guidelines and identifying other properties. So going forward, I'd like to take us a little bit back in time to 2008 and the Great Recession, because this is where it all started for us. Back in 2008, the Inland Empire essentially ceased from building new construction of single-family residences, which, if you notice, if you live around here, we actually have constructions of warehouses and hospitals and other buildings. The single-family residence ceased, bringing that up today, and that has caused already a scarcity of houses with today's low interest rates and increasing rental rates. as well as the recent hiking of pricing of lumber and labor, we see that this housing pricing increase is definitely holding steady. To put it in perspective, Riverside County and San Bernardino County are showing 15% less available inventory today than the last 5 years combined. I'm going to narrow it down to a city so that the numbers make more sense. So I'm going to use Moreno Valley. Moreno Valley, a year ago today, had approximately 290 houses available on the market. Today, we have 93 houses available on the market. So again, I'm going to say it again. There's only 93 houses available for the whole city. Back in 2008, we averaged over 600 houses on the market, which is what caused all that price reduction and depreciation of housing. So again, San Bernardino and Riverside, we are seeing that. We don't see a huge change happening in terms of value because we just don't have the available inventory right now. Now moving on to the mortgage industry, our lenders have been extremely busy. They have had a ton of activity, a lot of refinance activity over the last year. And so for the first time in the last 10 months, we had a 1% increase in mortgage applications this last month. But demand is still really, really high. And I think that the reason might be that we just don't have the inventory. New construction has pre-sold 33%, and builders are not releasing faces for several weeks. In fact, 2 builders locally have pulled their listings to try to go through all of the wait lists that they have. So they're not even marketing at this point. Currently, if you're going to list your house, houses are lasting on the market an average of 24 days. But if your listing is under our loan limit thresholds, then you're likely going to have offers within the first 2 days of hitting the market. So we're just that hot right now. If you want to know more about you, I only have 2-3 minutes, so I'm rushing through this material. But if you would like to know more information about your house or your listings or your area, or maybe if we have any investment opportunities, because we do have some rent-ready inventory that would be available for those of you still looking to capture a rental, then just be sure to let us know, and I'll be happy to reach out.
Great. Thank you, Krissia. That was some great information. Now we're going to have Tyler share with us what's happening in Orange County.
Yeah, appreciate it. So Krissia gave a lot of great information and kind of put it out there. So in terms of the Orange County market, in terms of inventory, supply and demand that Krissia just mentioned, it's very similar in that respect. But I want to share a couple of things specifically with Orange County. So right now, the median sales price of a home is an incredible $820,000, which is pretty insane. The other thing about it is on average, homes are only staying on the market and they're selling within 22 days. To give you an idea, Krissia said 24 in her market. They're in the Inland Empire. Orange County is again at 22. Last year at this time in Orange County, it was just over 90 days. Now, I want to mention something really quick because obviously within the past 12 months, the whole COVID situation, so some of these numbers aren't true in terms of last year, but did want to just mention that. And then as far as mortgage rates, you've probably all seen or heard somewhat is that for personal residents right now, interest rates are just slightly below 3%, which is pretty awesome. Okay, then for an investment, what we're seeing is that it's slightly above 4%. So depending on how long you've either owned a home or been alive for that matter, back in the day, I mean, 3% and 4% interest rates were unheard of. So to wrap things up on my end, all of that is pretty exciting news. And in my opinion, if you're looking to buy or sell real estate and considering it within the next 12 to 18 months, I would say right now is the time, especially if you're looking to buy and you're financing because rates are so low. However, if you're a cash buyer, it may work to your advantage to maybe wait it out a little bit because prices obviously are on the rise. So with that said, I'll give it back to Kristan.
Thanks, Tyler, for sharing that. We do want to take a few moments and open it up to questions. So if you have any questions, you can submit them in the chat, and then we can go ahead and ask Tyler and Krissia on that. We do have some questions coming in here. Tyler, when do you think the home prices will go down?
Great question. Because we've been at a high for so long, in my estimation, I feel that prices will adjust within the next 18 to 24 months. It could be sooner, it could be longer, but that's kind of that sweet spot that I truly think that we'll start to see an adjustment. Now, will it be dramatic? I don't think so, but incrementally we'll see an adjustment of more homes coming on the market. And obviously when there's more supply and a little bit less of demand, that's where you see that adjustment in the pricing.
Okay, great. We have another one, Krissia. If we want to somebody wants to buy a home for an investment, how would they go about that?
Okay, so there's a couple things. An investment property does require 20% down. With that said, depending on the market that you're looking to enter, we're going to have to look closely at what kind of a return you're looking at. So I think sitting down and really examining what your goals are with your rental market or with your rental property are going to be. As far as the lending goes, the rent, if you're going to have income property, the rent will typically have to help you cover the mortgage, and only 75% of the rent is used. So you will need to qualify for the mortgage part of it, have at least 20% down payment, and also know that some regulations have changed to try to taper off from having so many investment loans. So there is a limit to how many loans can be processed per month, but they are being done, and it's a very streamlined process. It's very simple. We just want to make sure that we are positioned to where it's going to make sense in the long term.
I'd like to comment on that just a second too, because even though the prices are a little bit high, I'll take you back in time a little bit. In 1982, interest rates, we were closing loans at 17.5% on first mortgages. So if you look at that today at 4% on an investment property, that means instead of your house payment being $2,000, it would be $8,000 on your rental property, to put it in perspective. So while prices are a little bit high, if you can get a locked in interest rate in that 2 to 4% range, depending if you're buying personal or if you're buying for an investment, it's golden, you know.
So, and just to piggyback on you, Ron, really fast, I do this for a lot of buyers because a lot of buyers want to know if it's a good time to buy. It's already really high. And essentially, when we do the numbers, and if you're buying a $500,000 home and interest rates only go up to 5%, the house would have to drop in value $100,000 for us to even be a wash to where the interest rates are impacting people today. So if you are looking for that financing, then absolutely, we just want to make sure that all the numbers pencil out so that we can put you in a position to not be in default later.
And after the conference tonight, you guys will all be getting everybody's emails, phone numbers, and you can contact them directly. So that'll be sent out after the webinar tonight. So, okay.
Great. Thanks, guys. So we're going to go ahead and transition into the eviction moratorium. So obviously, COVID brought us some interesting things when it comes to being in the rental market. As a landlord, you may or may not have been affected by it. And so tonight, I'm just going to kind of give a bird's eye view as to what's been transpiring for a variety of landlords. So to kind of give you a little bit of a background, March 27th of 2020, Congress enacted the CARES Act, or Coronavirus Aid, Relief and Economy Security Act, which was a $2.2 trillion stimulus package to help with the fallout of residents not being able to pay rent. One of these stipulations was a temporary 120-day moratorium on evictions, and we sit here today 365 plus days later, and we're still in the moratorium. And during this moratorium, and even now, landlords were not allowed to issue a notice to vacate, file any unlawful detainers for non-payment of rent, or any other fees related to renting. So that means we couldn't, for late fees or a variety of other fees, we were not allowed to evict residents. Prior to all of this, we could. In addition to what Congress passed, Governor Newsom of California also passed an assembly bill requiring us to take our 3-day notices to 15-day notices, and that's business days. So no Saturdays, Sundays, or judicial holidays. Additionally, they went on to create 2 protected periods, and that was August of last year. The first one is rents from March 1st of 2020 through August 31st. That's a protection period. And then they added one more, which is the transition period, which are rents due from September to January. And there's different protections for each of those periods, mostly for landlords to be informed on when you can and can't file evictions, what you can and can't charge for. This January, another bill passed, which extended that initial moratorium deadline from January to June. So we're hoping, rumor has it, that will expire June 30th, and landlords that have been without rent and non-compliant residents, we can proceed with evictions. That's what we're hoping for. In January, they also added some additional protections, one being previously a resident had to sign a 15-day declaration and remit 25% of the rent. In January, they did away with the and 25% of the rent. So they simply have to remit a declaration. That 25% rent comes due June 30th if they haven't been paying it. He also established a $1.4 billion rental assistance program. So I'm going to stop it here because that's a lot of information all at once, and answer any questions there might be at this current moment.
I don't see anybody that's come through at this point.
Okay.
So we'll just continue on. Obviously, it's a lot of detailed information, so I'm sure people are just trying to wrap their head around it. I know that's what we've been trying to do for a year, correct? So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So moving on, then the rental assistance program was great news for residents and landlords. And essentially it's covering rent from April 2020 to March 31st, 2021. And under the current program, landlords can recover up to 80% of back owed rents. Now, I do want to mention, we got word a couple of weeks ago that there's a possibility that it could go to 100%. We don't know if that's going to happen, so we're not promising. We're going with what we know, and that's 80% at this point in time. Of course, there's always stipulations, and the major stipulation with this rental assistance is that landlords receive the 80%, but they must forgive the remaining 20% of the rent. While it's not as great as getting 100, it's definitely better than 0. And again, so landlords can't file eviction for non-payment of rent during this time. So how can a landlord qualify? Couple of major key points is that, first of all, you must own the property or be the property manager. You must have a resident, at least one, that hasn't paid rent between the periods. And it must have a COVID-related event. Lastly, you must have a lease agreement. And that's kind of like a no duh, but there are people out there that do things on a handshake or what have you, and they don't have an actual written lease. In terms of residents qualifying, they also must meet, and that's a key word, they must meet all 3 of these categories to actually be eligible. And so one of them meet unemployment benefits, other financial hardships, directly or indirectly related to COVID. And they must be able to prove it in writing. So word of mouth isn't going to fly. They want it in writing. And they must be able to demonstrate non-ability to pay and an income not more than 80% of the area median. And now that's important too as we get into the next slides, because that affects how monies are dispersed. Speaking of disbursement, the organizations that are dispersing these funds are doing them in 3 rounds. So those that fall less than the 50%, communities that were disproportionately impacted, such as Riverside, where they had such high rates of COVID. And then once those are dispersed, then they'll disperse to other applicants. So again, we'll pause because that's a lot of information going through.
Yeah, we have a question here from Barbara Kristan. She asked, what if the tenant hasn't paid rent from March to present, but they have been paying, but have caught up, but not through 2021?
Well, we'll know more come June 30th. We're limited to how we can apply rents that are being paid. If a resident doesn't say, apply it to my back rent, we have to apply it to current rent. And if they're applying it to current rent or back rent and not current rent, then that kind of opens a whole nother ball of wax.
Okay, and isn't also, we know that as of August 1st, no matter what, as it is today, as of August 1st, then you can file suit for all back rent or file an eviction, because basically all the gloves come off unless they change something between now and then. But as we see it right now, we don't see that happening. But August 1st, and also in small claims when it comes to rent, they have allowed to sue for as much money as the resident owes you. There is no limit, like $10,000 when it comes to rent. So if somebody owes you $40,000 of rent, you can file suit for that $40,000 along with an eviction. But it is very complicated because at every 3-month period, some you can apply for, and then they went another 3 months and passed another bill, and then you can apply it to this 3 months, but not the last 3 months, Barbara. So, but we're more than happy to talk with you on it tomorrow, and we'll make sure you have total clarity on it. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's the one we have right there.
Okay, perfect. So some important points to remember with all of this, because it is overwhelming. And like Ron mentioned, we've put a lot of time into making sure we're understanding it. Landlords will receive, that is one thing that Governor Newsom said, is you will receive it. And depending on the jurisdiction that you're in, some organizations are paying 100% of back owed rent. And even forward, we have recently received approximately 5 back owed rents, bringing them current and paying them into the future, which has been really nice for those landlords and residents. If you accept the 80%, you agree to waive the 20% that is part of the stipulations of the funding being dispersed. And the landlord can refuse to participate. And we know some that haven't. However, the resident can apply on their own behalf and collect 25%, not the 80, but the 20, because again, part of the stipulations with the declarations, they have to sign a declaration and pay 25% to avoid eviction. And so the organizations are allowing residents to apply on their own behalf, collect the 25%, pay it to the landlord, and then they won't be able to file eviction on that. Having said that, if a resident refuses to participate, the landlord cannot proceed with the process. So that does make it a little bit more difficult. However, when we can file evictions, it'll make it a little bit easier to move it on through.
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple more questions here. Barbara also asks, are there forms that she needs to provide the tenant? And the answer to that is we can get you all that information, Barbara. As far as tomorrow, there is a process you have to go through, but it's not that difficult, okay? And then we also have a question here from Robert. What are the restrictions to sell the investment property come June 30th if the tenant is still not paying and they are out of the lease?
That's a great question. That is a stipulation of the ability to file. You would need to give the resident notice to vacate first. If they fail to vacate at the end of their 60-day notice, we can file eviction on that. But you do have to give them notice. So just because their lease has expired, it rolls to month automatically in most cases. And then if you want them to vacate, we do have to properly serve them. If they don't vacate, evictions will proceed. We do have a couple of those, and they are proceeding. We've been successful at completing those evictions. So if you have more questions on that, feel free to email me and we'll be happy to answer those directly for your specific properties.
Yes, because come July 1st, as we see it today, we're going to be able to file evictions normally and serve 3-day notices. We don't have to wait 15 days and the clock starts, ticking on them. So things will move very rapidly in about another 40 days compared to what it has been, providing, and I want to say providing, we don't have new legislation that comes down that changes all that. So yes, okay, that's all the questions that Robert had and Barbara had there.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that concludes my section on eviction. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ron Sudman, the owner and CEO of Management One, and he's going to talk to us on the 5 quadrants of owning your rental property. Ron?
Kristan, I think you meant the janitor, right? Not the CEO?
Right. Yeah. Right. I always get that part wrong.
Okay, guys. Hey, it's great to be back with you. Before I get into the 5 major quadrants or components of a rental property, one must look at the entire picture if you're going to play and stay in the game of rental property. Okay, I want to touch on a few things. I and over 4,000 of my amazing clients have experienced in an unbelievable 36 years that we've been together. As landlords, we always have a tendency to focus what's in front of us. And on a rental property, that is normally maintenance and vacancy. What we all hate is repairs, correct? We all hate them. I hate them. I don't like repairs either. But we found the main reason landlords hate them is because they don't have money set aside to pay for them. And that causes a lot of stress and inconvenience. And it causes a lot of stress on the family and the family's budget when these unexpected things come up. And also, a lot of times, landlords have a hard time wrapping their head around why renters don't care for their property like we would. And quite simply, I have the answer to that. And it's called rent-a-car mentality. In other words, residents look and take care of our properties like we all drive a rent-a-car. Now, the last time, basically, all of you rented a car, and I know all of you have, okay, I want to ask you a question. Before you took it back to the rental dealership, did you take it through the car wash, making sure it was perfect? And also, when you went to the supermarket or Walmart, did you make sure you parked it out away from all the other cars so nobody would give you a door ding? And I think I know the answer to that question. The answer is none of us do, right? Okay. And so if you just understand that, it helps us wrap our head around how residents take care of your property. Okay. So they're not going to take care as well as you do. Okay. But at the end of the day, you're going to be able to do very well on it, which you're going to see in just a few moments here as we get into the presentation. So it's important for you to not only keep the property or properties that you have, and it's also important that you buy more property so you can retire in style. So we got to look at the whole picture, or as I refer to it, as looking at the entire picture of the Mona Lisa, because you can't really appreciate the art of the Mona Lisa if all you see is the corner of the Mona Lisa, right? There's no way you can. So believe it or not, I actually have the answer to how to always have money for maintenance repairs and feel awesome as well about the wealth that you're creating. So I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But for right now, we're going to move right into the 5 quadrants as far as of a rental property. So let me go in here, and I am ready to go. Okay, since I am presenting now. Okay, great. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. There's other things in a rental property that you have write-offs and stuff, interest, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. That's for another conversation. But we're going to talk about depreciation. We're going to talk about the reduction of your principal on your loan. We're going to talk about rent increases. We're going to talk about the appreciation as your property goes up in value. And we're also going to be talking about as far as maintenance repairs. So let's get right into depreciation and how that works out. Okay, basically, you can depreciate your rental property, excluding the land, over 27 and a half years. So if you have a 400,000 property, minus the land value, which most of them figure about 25%, you'd be able to write off 300,000 over 27 and a half years, or about $11,000 each year. Now, if you're in a 25% tax bracket, which I'm being very nice here because most of you are well over that, okay, you're going to save approximately $2,700 a year in income taxes that you would have had to pay had you not owned that rental property. And a lot of us forget about that. But that $2,700, it kind of gets muddled in with your personal tax return. And you just say, well, I guess I'm paying less taxes. Well, you are, okay? But it is very, very significant when it comes to the depreciation, okay? Now, the next item we're going to talk about, because these first two are pretty simple, and then we'll get into the weeds a little bit more on the rent increases. On a $300,000 loan at 4%, your payment's going to be about $1,432. However, $432 of that is going to pay down your principal. So it's kind of like a forced savings account, okay? And this will increase actually every month. But for easy figuring, let's just say it was $450 a month times 12 months. That's another $5,400 a year you have going into a savings account, because basically, as time goes on, that resident is going to pay that property off. So we have to really look at those two factors and note that, yes, you can't use that money right now like you can the depreciation, because you're going to get it back on your tax return, but it's real money. Okay, so is there any questions at this point?
Yeah, Ron, we do have a question. And the question is, what happens if the resident damages the property before an eviction? And how do you get reimbursed? And how do you figure that into what we're talking about?
Well, basically, on the eviction like that, if they damage the property, first of all, we got to have access so we can assess the damages, okay? Because until they move out, we're not going to know what the damages are, okay? But once they're out of the property, what you want to make sure you have is you want to make sure you have an insurance called malicious intent. And what that is, it's not vandalism. That is insurance that's going to go ahead and pay for items, that aren't normal wear and tear that the resident damages intentionally. Okay. Now, the other part of that is you can write some of it off on your taxes, and then you have the security deposit. But the security deposit really is just going to pay basically for the not the deposit on your insurance. I'm losing thought here for a second. But as far as your deductible, as far as on your insurance, that's about all that the security is going to pay for. So make sure you have malicious intent insurance. And if you don't have that, call us. We'll show you how to get it. And no, it does not cost you any more, if anything, as far as for the coverage, maybe $50 a year. Okay. But we can help you on that. Okay. Any others?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. So now let's move on. Very, popular topic, and that's called rent increases. Okay. Here's the big myth. Okay. And before I say that, 95% of landlords who manage their own properties never raise the rent. And if they do, they raise it about every 5 years, and they normally raise it excessively. Okay. So this is going to shock you, but basically, how many people move because you raise the rent? And the answer is 7%, according to Buildium. And that's if you raise the rent moderately, between 2 to 5%. Even with rent control, you can go higher than 5%, in some cases 7 or 8, depending on the city or the county that you're in. So at 2 to 5% is nothing as far as to go ahead and be able to raise the rent. Okay, so then people ask, well, what is the biggest reason they move? Okay, and the biggest reason they move is maintenance. Maintenance, repairs, and improvements not done timely or not done at all. So if you look at these numbers, because maintenance is not taken care of, residents move 5 times more than they do if you increase their rent. Okay, and that's why raising rent is a myth out there that they will leave you, and you will see here in just a second where they definitely do not leave you. And we've experienced this ourselves. A lot of management companies go with that myth. We've proved it wrong over the last 36 years. Okay, so now let's look at if we raise rent just a minimum of $50 a month each year consecutively, over 6 years, okay, which is only a 2.5% increase on a $2,000 rent. How much money would you have, okay, at the end of that 6 years? Because most people think, well, why do I even want to bother with it? It's only like $50, okay? Well, here's why, okay? Because at the end of 6 years, you're going to have a mind-blowing $12,600 in your account. Because here's what happens is compounding interest. The first year, and I'm not going to get it too far in the weeds, but I want to touch on this, just a couple of them. If you look at there, we got $50. So the first year, 50 times 12 is 600. The next year, we raise it another 50. So the second year, we make 1,200 plus 600 a year before. Now we have 1,800. The third year alone, at 150 times 12, we make another 1,800. So just in 3 years, we're up to $3,600 that quick. So if you look at the bottom, it's $12,600. And here's why. Because the maintenance is coming. Residents are not going to take care of your property as well as you are. They're going to want more repairs on repairs you would normally fix. Okay, but they're not going to do that. But it's okay. The real challenge of it is understanding and looking at the whole picture. It's not the fact that you have repairs. It's the fact that we got to dig the well before we need the water. Okay, and that's what we're doing here. Okay, so let me go to the next one. Okay, does it work? Oh boy, does it. Okay, here's a true story. Okay, Whispering Winds, Moreno Valley, California. The rent started at $700 29 years ago in 1991. Okay, the resident just moved out in 2020. The rent was $1,635. And yes, the same resident was there for 29 years. I know it's hard to believe, but we have verification and we can definitely back up. Okay. And now you're asking, well, did you ever raise the rent? They probably stayed because you never raised the rent. Negative. The average rent increase was $32 a year each year for 29 years. And again, most of you are thinking, why bother for $32 a year? I mean, each year for a month. I mean, why even bother writing up the paperwork? Well, here's why. Because if you do that, for which they did for every year for 29 years, that's $166,000 that you have in your pocket. Okay? And again, residents don't leave because you raise their rent moderately. They leave because you don't take care of them, you don't give them good service, and you don't take care of repairs, and you don't improve the property. That's why residents leave. 5 times greater than if you would have raised the rent. Okay. Now all this seems pretty good, right? Okay. It gets better. Okay. It gets a lot better. Okay. The property was purchased in 1991 for $89,000. Okay. It just sold through Krissia. Okay. For an astounding $385,000, 4 times more than what it was purchased for back in 1991. Now, and it gets better from here, okay? The resident paid the mortgage off for the owner with no vacancy and no rehab of the property in 29 years. Now, I know this is an exceptional case, but my point is tonight is that you can raise rents and you can raise them every year and your residents will not leave. We have a lot of residents that have been with us 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Okay, this isn't just one. We have a lot of them, okay? And last, these owners, look at the recap here. They got $166,000 in increase in rents. Their house went up 4 times. They made $385,000. The resident paid off the mortgage, And while all this is going on, they had a hassle-free experience because management one took the calls in the middle of the night when the toilet wasn't working, not the owner. And this is a perfect storm, but it happens again and again and again. So raising rents definitely, is something that everybody needs to be doing. Do we have any questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right. So let me continue on here. Okay. Let's talk about appreciation of your property. Okay. By using the power of leverage, you really make out on this. Okay. We all do. If you buy a rental property and put down 25% on 100 or 100,000, I should say, on a $400,000 property you're buying, basically what it is you're going to make it on the 400 on the appreciation. But let me regress here for a second. The appreciation rate for the last 12 months in California has been 11.9%, or for easy figuring, let's say 12%. Is everybody okay with that? All right. So if you could make 12% on that 100,000, which you can't, okay, you're going to be lucky to get 2 in the bank, okay, on $100,000. But if you could, you would make 12,000 appreciation on the 100,000. But because you bought a property and leveraged it, you're making 12% on 400,000, or you would have made an astonishing $48,000 in appreciation on just that year alone. Now, some of you on the call today, you've seen that in your own home prices. You can go on Zillow, you can see the rise in values and stuff. Okay, but this gets pretty exciting. But let's look at this. Even if it was half of that, would we not still be totally excited if it was only 24,000? Okay, in a year. Okay, and so the appreciation of your property is just amazing. But we forget about these things, and because we mainly focus on one area, and that is maintenance. Okay, now maintenance repairs is part of the 5 quadrants, and it what makes it all work. Without maintenance, you can't have the other 4 amazing benefits, which you've seen how amazing they are. So we focus all our attention on maintenance, and it's what we all hate most, of course. Okay, so to avoid vacancies, you must improve your property and give it a resident a reason to stay. You have to do that. Okay, for your property to appreciate, you must do improvements outside and inside. Okay, so let me share with you some statistics here. Out of 5,200 work orders, yes, we do a lot of work orders at Management One. Okay, from 2019 to 2020, the average general maintenance, now I'm talking about faucets, fences, sprinklers, appliances, etc., it takes to run a single family home property is about $1,500 a year, or about $125 a month on average. Now, in some cases, you might go 2 years and only have 1 repair, and then in the 3rd year, you get hit with $3,000. Okay, but this is the average. And so what does this mean? That means you have to prepare for it. Okay, you don't want it to become unexpected and go, well, wait a minute. When I lived in the property, I didn't have all these repairs. Exactly. Now we're back to rent-a-car mentality, right? They want more service, okay, than you wanted. Okay, but look at the benefits I just pointed out in the other 4 quadrants. Okay, so why do landlords hate maintenance? It's basically, ladies and gentlemen, is because landlords have not set up the structure to pay for the maintenance repair. It's just that simple. Okay, so let's recap 1 year on these 5 quadrants, just 1 year. So basically, you're going to pay out maintenance, so you're going to lose $1,500, but this is a tax write-off. So by the time you take federal and state, you're only paying basically 60% of that $1,500, not a total of $15,000, because that's a tax write-off. Okay. Rental increase is $75 a month, or $900 each year. And in 6 years, that'll put $19,000 in your pocket. Okay. And the reason we go with 75 today, because that is about the minimum that we raise rents. The reason of it is because if you go on a $2,000 rent, a $75 a month increase is somewhere around 2.5% to 3%, depending on the average rent rate. Depreciation, you're going to pick up $2,700 a year. Reduction in principal, you're picking up another $5,400. And I get it that you can't spend the $5,400 right now, but it's still real. Okay, it's in that forced savings account, because if you sold that property today, your loan is going to be less than what it was when you bought it, correct? So that's real money. okay, and the appreciation, amazing, $48,000, okay? So on a recap, okay, last year, after you take the 1,500 out, you made a whopping $65,000. So, but our focus is where? Our focus is up here on maintenance, and we're not seeing the whole picture. We're not seeing, but now we're seeing the whole picture of the Mona Lisa, right? Because you're seeing how beneficial it is. And so what does that mean? That means I've got to set up a structure so I can go ahead and take care of these maintenance items. So look at here, you have 19,000 in 6 years on rent increases, and you have 16,200 in 6 years on yearly tax savings for over $35,000 alone, okay? So here's the secret to making it work, okay? Basically, you must set up, if you don't have one already, and if you do have one, I congratulate you. But if you don't, you set up a separate rental property checking account. It can be a check and savings, and you cannot steal from it. Otherwise, you will innocently squander it away. Let me explain. Okay, we'll say Tyler. Tyler, we have a rental property. He says, go ahead and raise the rent, $75 a month. And all of a sudden, he has the money going into his personal checking account. What happens? Money comes in. He goes, after 3 months,
spend it.
I got some extra money, right, Tyler?
Heck
So
yeah.
he makes an extra trip to Disneyland, or he goes out to another dinner, and you just innocently squander it away. Okay, and then the management company or the resident calls you and says, I need this fixed. It's going to be $400. It's like, where am I going to get this money?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wasn't planning on this. It wasn't $400 when I lived there. We had these conversations tens of thousands of times on 10,000 properties in 36 years. So we know how you're going to feel on this. So here's how it works. You set up a separate rental checking savings account, okay, and the rent from your resident or management company goes in here automatically every month, okay? Here's another thing. When you get that tax refund, your CPA can tell you what you save by owning your rental property. And when he tells you that number, you take and write a check from that refund check of $2,700 and you put it into this rental checking savings account, because that is not your money. It is your retirement money in that rental property. And if you do that, you're going to have $16,200 in 6 years just on that alone. Okay, rent increases, the $75 a month, that's another $19,000. Okay, all mortgage payments are paid out of here, property taxes, insurance, and all repairs are paid from here. Okay, and not only that, your CPA will love you. Okay, because all you have to do is say, here it is, here's all my receipts, I printed them out from Management One's portal, and here you go, figure out how much money I made last year. Okay, and it's a simple deal. So we recommend here, guys, that you put 5,000 to 10,000 with your rent increases. It should fund your property from then on in most cases. If you have to even start with $100 a day, I don't care. The really important thing is to start and make sure the rent starts going into that account, and make sure that when you get that tax refund, make sure you cut out whatever that money is and you put it back into that account. And if you do that, okay, when somebody calls you and says, I need $15,000 for a roof, you're going to have $35,000 sitting there to pay that $15,000. And you're going to find yourself with long-term residents on those properties, you know, and you're going to be better off as far as for it. The big thing of it is, do not steal from what we call your piggy bank or your rental account, okay? And we kid with people, but you cannot steal from it. It's like taking money out of your IRA and not paying the tax on it, right? That's a no-no. So look at it as a retirement account, which it really is, because it'll take care of you. And I've had some owners say, well, how about if I end up with like 80, 90,000 in there extra? I go, fine, we'll buy another property. Great idea, right? Okay, and the thing of it is, you'll never have to cancel a vacation. You'll still be able to put your kids through school. It's never going to affect your family life if you follow this policy. Now, how would I know that? Okay, because I've done it. And I own property where other management companies manage my property in other states. Okay, and so I sit where you sit. Okay, and so I understand how you feel when somebody calls up and they need $3,000 for something, or even $250 or something. All right, questions that we may have.
I don't see any coming through on the chat. Just a reminder, you guys can submit the questions on the chat, and then we will ask them on the open forum. And then if we don't get to them, we will respond afterwards.
Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I will give it back to Kristan, and you're it.
Great. So Tyler, you work for Management One in our business development, and you are constantly working on the rental properties. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in the rental market right now.
Yeah. So kind of like the sales market, very, very similar. Rents are increasing dramatically, which is awesome for landlords. The problem with that is for renters out there, we don't have enough homes to rent them. So if you're thinking about buying investment properties, like I said, now is the time. Rents are going up, and we have, hundreds of people in the pipeline just waiting and biting at the bit to rent properties. So with that said, though, for us here at Management One, on average right now, what we're seeing is it's taking about 2 weeks or a little bit less than that to actually rent our owners' properties. Now, in some cases, most recently, within the past 2 to 3 weeks, actually, we've been able to rent some owners' properties within 24 to 72 hours. It can be done that fast, but on average, it's about 2 weeks, which is still pretty darn good. Like I had mentioned, the shortage of inventory. So we really, if not yourself, which obviously, as Ron alluded to, buy some rental property, it can set you up nice for retirement. But if you know of any family, friends, anyone from church, work that has a rental property or has thought about it, have them contact us, and that way we can help them in that respect. And then also, again, help out our renters that are just waiting to get into properties because they need a place to live. And then the last thing I want to touch on, and we'll be wrapping up shortly, is advantages of having a property management company, whether it's us at Management One or any professional company. We would hope you go with us, but if not, we do suggest that you go with a professional. The reason being is, as you have all witnessed, and a lot of you have probably experienced this past year with COVID, is that the laws, especially in California, are always changing. I mean, they can change on a dime.
Yep.
So with having a professional company, you can go to sleep at night knowing that someone is on your side, and you don't have to stress about if you did something right, if you did something wrong, getting yourself into legal trouble. So that's the last thing I want to leave everyone with is, if not us, please, please, please consider hiring a professional company if you don't already have one.
Yeah, and let me just jump on the back of that. Property management today isn't what it was even 5 years ago. This thing is moving at such a quick pace. I mean, we have people working around the clock, attorneys. Kristan has spent hundreds and hundreds of hours just sorting all this information out, working into the wee hours and making sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So I can't even imagine somebody trying to manage a property like they did 5 years ago. Fair housing law, super, super strict now. Doesn't matter if you're an individual owner or a management company, they're coming after you, okay? And not only that, with a management company, if they're worth their salt and good, okay, they will actually pay their own way. They'll get your rent increases where they need to be. And in our case, because we have such an amazing pipeline of all residents over the last 36 years that follow us now, we can normally get a higher rent rate for you than you could get on your own, and it's going to rent definitely a lot faster because we already have the pipeline set up. We're not starting from ground zero, putting the first ad in the Zillow. Okay, so it's a wholly different situation with us here. So back to you, Kristan.
Okay, so we're going to just take a couple minutes and open the forum up to questions. So if you have any, go ahead and submit them in the chat. And so
I see Noel has one here. What happens if the tenant damaged the property before the eviction? How do you get reimbursed for that?
Yeah, that's the one you were answering earlier, making sure that you have proper insurance, which is great because that's going to be another topic in a future webinar, is making sure your resident is insured as well as the landlord, and making sure you have the proper insurance in place.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think too, a lot of people, Kristan, I'm going to, because a lot of people might have questions about, this eviction moratorium and some of the 80% grants that are being handed. But these are for people that have currently have some sort of a contract due to COVID, if I'm correct. So, unfortunately, we know that there are a lot of owners that have been impacted by this time of not being able to evict someone that does not have a COVID-related loss, at which point, it is unfortunate. We really are waiting for the doors to open to be able to get your properties to an eviction process. But these grants are actually going for this process specifically that we know of. And unless it opens up to something else, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I know for everybody else that's just without rent and losses, we're really just trying to get you through the system at this point.
Let me point out though, we have successfully evicted 6 people during this chaos. They are out of the property, and we have gotten the owners their properties back and got them re-rented and stuff. So we have been very successful. But we have, great infrastructure, great attorneys, great systems, and it takes that, especially in this COVID-19 situation that we've been, forced to deal with and stuff. So,
and let's point out, this doesn't even include other things like fraud. We're seeing a huge increase in fraud for a lot of our rental properties, as well as the properties that are for sale, and people breaking into properties. So that's a whole other video, but it does circle back around to having somebody looking out for your property, because we are making sure that we're not falling within those parameters.
Yeah.
So I want to mention one thing, and I know we have a couple questions and then we'll wrap up, but I just want to mention one thing that Ron and I were talking about the other day. So if you're an owner and let's say that your renter has not been paying rent over the last X amount of months, again, keep in mind within the last 12 months, your appreciation of the property has gone up 12%. So when you look at it, again, from a bird's eye view, in most cases, it's kind of a wash. Now, did you make money because the non-payment of rent? No. But did you lose money? Most cases, you really didn't when you look at it that way. So I just want to mention that too. Obviously, we're not in the business of ever losing money. But with that appreciation, it kind of balances that out within this past 12 months. So just wanted to mention that.
Well, it's actually even a little bit better than that, to pony back on that, is because if you lost $20,000, you're writing that $20,000 off on your income tax. So you're going to get back, quite a bit of money as far as on that, at least 40%. So you're going to get back 8 of that 2,000 or 20,000. So no, as you said, Tyler, we never want to lose money, but it's the best of a bad situation that none of us had control of. So that's excellent from there. Okay, we've got a couple of questions here. You want to go ahead and go with that, Kristan?
Yeah. So Robert's asking, what happens if a resident claims COVID hardship but doesn't get approved because they really don't have a hardship? Well, that's fraud. And if they're turning in the declaration, and not paying the 25%, legally, we have to wait until June 30th for the eviction moratorium to expire. The following month, we can start filing eviction. If they're not turning in the declaration and they have not paid 25%, we can proceed with eviction. We have proceeded with evictions in certain cases. And like Ron said, we were successful. So it depends on what your scenario is. And, unfortunately, there's always a if then what, if now, then what. So we would probably be best just to contact me directly, and we can talk about your specific scenario based on our experience. And then always, we're not an attorney, so we're just going to tell you what the facts are. And if it gets deeper than that, then we'll refer you out to an attorney.
Okay, ask, tenant already moved out on November 1st, 2020. Can we claim 80% rent back from government program?
The answer is most likely not. And the reason is because you need the residents' participation from the landlord. So if you're the landlord and the resident doesn't participate in reclaiming that in supplying proof, you're not going to be able to. So if they've already moved out, your best bet is come August 1st when you can start filing judgments. That's the time to do it. So that, unfortunately, most likely not.
And Greg Martin here. Greg asked, I have a rental property ready in Moreno Valley, but I can't get the German Shepherd next door to stop barking, making it really hard to put a renter in there. Perhaps this question is outside the scope of this webinar. Basically, that's going to fall under the terms of quiet of enjoyment. What that term means is you have a right to be able to live in your property and not be disturbed constantly. I would contact Fair Housing is what I would do and have them work with you on it. And you can also give us a call as well. But that would be the first person I would contact. So call Fair Housing, probably be Fair Housing in Riverside, I would think, the office, and see what they can do for you on that. Okay.
We have one more question here from Noel Noel, and he wants to know, so we'll just throw it up to the agents here and see who answers it. What is the hottest areas to purchase investments?
Okay, so
Go ahead.
if we actually compare apples to apples, and we have done several studies to see what the rate of return is from, say, Orange County to the Inland Empire. And in a lot of our higher yielding cities, and those, we look at school districts, we look at a lot of things that protect longevity for your residents. The rental increase percentages tend to match in a lot of our higher yielding cities, like I said. So it really just depends on what your budget looks like. It also depends on whether you want to have an A-type property, a B-type property, a C-type property, and really what your clientele is, what demographic you're trying to target. So we have very specific areas that, we can't steer our clients, but that we know that yield a longer length of tenancy rates, and that rent faster and stay rented for a longer time. Now, Tyler obviously has, really great areas, but the price points are different. So I believe that the rate of return ends up being very close to, like I said, to our higher yielding cities. It's just how much do you want to invest and what kind of property are you looking to invest into?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. I would say anyone who's thinking that same thing of what are the hottest markets, just contact Krissia or myself. It's a little bit of a loaded question and would need to be talked about more of a one-on-one conversation. See what your goals are. If you're looking more for equity in the property, cash on cash flow. So there's a lot of details that go into that answer. So please just give us a call or email us, and we could set up a time where we can really dive into more detail specific to you and what would be the best fit for you and your family.
Yeah, let me pony back on that too. We got to look at, there has not been any building, as Krissia alluded to earlier, okay, for the last decade, okay? It would take all builders working full-time, 24 hours around the clock, and it still would take them 5 years to even come close to being caught up, okay? So number one, you have scarcity. So it's like having the hottest pair of shoes in town, okay, you ladies and stuff, okay, then you're going to get over market for it. So my point of it is you have hardly no inventory, okay, and you have a lot of people wanting to buy. On top of that, you have an appreciation rate that's sitting at 12%, which is astounding, okay, and you have an interest rate which is in the 2 to 4% range, okay. So the answer to their question is you can't hardly make a mistake. The only question of it is if you're going to buy in Orange County, how much negative cash flow can you handle compared to if you're going to the Inland Empire, your cash flow might be a little bit less as far as negative, if at all, but then your appreciation might be a 3 or 4% less in Moreno Valley than it would be in Orange County. Okay, but you got to be able to withstand the negative cash flow. So like Tyler said, it is kind of a loaded question, but it's a great question. And we ask it all the time. So, okay, Uh,
A few more and we should be able to wrap up.
okay.
I saw Victoria. She's asking Ron, you and myself, if there's any opportunity in the future for property management with our firm in San Diego County.
Okay. Right now, we don't have any plans to go there, but we do have an awesome company there in San Diego. And so give us a call, give Kristan a call. We're going to show the numbers here on the screen in just a second, so you can get a hold of her. But they're unbelievable. I not only know the owner personally, but I've known his father for the last 35, 40 years. So well respected, and you can check them out yourself. They got great Yelp and Google ratings, but they're an awesome company, and we'll put you in touch with them. They'll take good care of you. That's not a problem. Okay. So
I think we got one last question there. They were asking in this question for what is the approximate cost to file for a judgment?
That depends on your local jurisdiction, and we know what it was pre-COVID. Not sure what it's going to be post-COVID. However, in future webinars, most likely the one in July, leading up to August, we will be addressing actually preparing for being able to file judgments once everything, fingers crossed, opens back up and we're able to do so. It's on target for August 1. We never know, but that is. So right now, tentative to talk about and address that so that people that are in this situation can be prepared.
Well, let me expand on that too, because in the past, first of all, what you have to do is you have to file a small claims action. Okay, that's what's going to cost you. It doesn't cost you anything for the judgment. Okay, but you have to pay for the small claims. In the past, it's been around a couple $100 when it all shakes out. Okay, it's not that expensive. Okay, and if it has to do with rent, then you can go for as much money as you need to, what you can justify. If it's not rent, then goes back to the $10,000. But it's a couple $100. The key thing on that is once you go ahead and go to small claims, they give you a judgment. Now you got to collect on the judgment. And just so you know, you normally are going to need a collection company who are going to take 50% of what your judgment is, because as soon as you attach somebody's wages, okay, or they attach a checking account, that person will close it, and then they got to go find him again. So it's a very lengthy process. But let's look at this. If you had a $10,000 judgment, and let's say you got 5 of 10,000, but then you wrote the other 5,000 off on your income taxes. So out of 10,000, you might have a net loss of only 2,000. So it's worthwhile doing, okay? But it's a lengthy process. So don't, undercut the work that's going to be involved. And I see Naran, he asked if we serve in the Pomona area. We have looked into that area. And so if you like, give us a call and we'll give it some serious consideration to doing property management as far as in that area. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go to the, to finish it up here on the next slide here. Okay, next month, okay. These webinars will be held every month, except the month of December. We go dark on December because everybody's busy with holidays. Other than that, we will be having a webinar like we had tonight, but different topics every third Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay, so next month we'll be talking about the lawsuits, what's changed on the landlord to be able to maybe get you 100% instead of 80%, and other information as far as on COVID-19. It looks like COVID-19 is on its way out of town, but we're going to have to do a lot of cleanup, and we'll be telling you how to do that. Next month, we'll start to talk about the single-family home retirement strategy. It's a program that I developed over 30 years ago. It still looks awesome today, and we're going to be looking at part 1. It's what we call the Management 1 Monopoly game, okay? And this will be a series for the next few months, so you'll want to tune in each month because we'll be breaking it down because there's several moving parts to it, but it's very exciting. And we also have software that's really easy to use. We have videos on how to use it, and it's super, super inexpensive. It's only like $9.95 a month that you'll be able to look at if you want as far as down the road. But it's something that you'll definitely want to attend. About 20 minutes of the webinar each month we'll be spending on it. And then what we're also going to be doing is we're going to be showcasing some current clients and actual cases on what they've been able to do with their investments, with people like Krissia and Tyler, and also as far as with Management One, and where they started and where they are today. Okay, and so we're really excited to have some of these people on here. And we'll have residents on too, but we'll be showing you residents been with us 25 years plus, owners 30-year plus, and it's going to be exciting. We can't wait for you guys to join in on that. So here's, if you have questions, we'll be sending out, like I said, our emails and phone numbers to you. If you have an immediate need tonight, you can email Kristan, and she will get back with you first thing tomorrow morning at support@gmail.com. Okay. And lastly, we want to thank all of you for, attending your night with us. It's been great. And next month, if you like what you see here tonight, it's only going to get better and more exciting. Invite your friends, family, business associates, and just send Kristan their email, and she'll put them on the list, and then they will get the notices for the next webinar, which will be the third Wednesday in the month of June. So with that, guys, anybody else have anything to say? Krissia?
No, I mean, this was exciting. I think there was a lot that was really relevant and so many questions, especially with what's happened all year. So thank you for having me, and it's been very, very informative.
Awesome. How about you, Tyler?
No, appreciate you having me. I know it's probably a lot of information for everyone, but we're going to make it more interactive, more fun. We might bring in some drinks, or I don't know. We'll have to talk to Ron about that. But it's a lot of information, but it's stuff that's needed, and it's stuff that can really, I believe, and we all believe, and some of you probably already know, that can help create that wealth, so you can go to bed at night knowing that you're pretty much covered. Kids can go through school. You can go on vacations. So even though it's not the sexiest stuff to talk about, it's definitely needed. So we're happy to help.
Okay, Kristan?
No, I just, echo what everybody else has said. So thank you for joining us, taking the time out of your night to do that, especially those of you who are on the East Coast or in a different country. Thanks for doing that. We appreciate you spending your time with us.
Yeah, because we've had people in several different states as well as people out of country. So definitely thank you all, and have an awesome night, and we will see you next month. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.